The galaxy had a graveyard. Not a metaphor, not a legend. An actual graveyard, a region of space spanning 11 light years where the wreckage of 417 warships drifted in permanent silence. Ships from 9 different civilizations. The oldest debris was 600 years old. There was 11 months. Every single one of them had been destroyed in the same location. Same coordinates. Same cause of death, unknown. No survivors. No black box recordings that made any sense. Just ships that went in and did not come out, and the ones that turned back in time came back with crews who refused to talk about what they had seen and requested immediate psychological evaluation and permanent reassignment far away from that region of space. The galaxy called it the Silence. Nobody went there anymore. Nobody except humans. Commander Singh had volunteered for the Silence mission 3 times before Earth Defense Command finally approved it. The first 2 rejections had cited insufficient data. The third rejection had cited psychological profile concerns, which had found mildly insulting and also completely fair, because the honest reason she kept volunteering was not scientific curiosity or military duty. It was that she could not stop thinking about it. The Silence had been in her head since she was 19 years old and had first read the reports in an astrophysics seminar. Not because the numbers frightened her, because they did not add up. 417 ships over 6 centuries, all destroyed at the same coordinates, and not one shred of consistent evidence about what had done it. Energy readings that contradicted each other. Structural damage patterns that suggested 17 different causes simultaneously. Crew psychological profiles from the survivors, the ones who had turned back, that described experiences so inconsistent that the only thing they had in common was that everyone who had them refused to describe them in detail. That inconsistency was what kept her awake. Because in her experience, inconsistency did not mean random. Inconsistency meant something was happening that existing frameworks could not describe. And things that existing frameworks could not describe were, in her professional opinion, the most interesting things in the universe. Earth Defense Command had finally approved the mission not because they had run out of reasons to say no, but because 3 months ago a scout ship had gone into the Silence and not come back, and they had responded by announcing their intention to send a full military fleet to neutralize the threat. And the last thing anyone needed was a military fleet firing weapons into a region of space that nobody understood. This mission was simple on paper. Go in, observe, come back, do not engage with anything, do not fire weapons, do not attempt heroics. She had agreed to all of these conditions completely sincerely, and with full intention of honoring them right up, until the moment circumstances made that impossible. The ISV threshold crossed into the Silence at 300 hours ship time. The first thing that happened was that all external communications cut out, not jammed, not blocked, simply absent as if the concept of signal transmission had become locally optional. This was expected. Every ship that had entered the Silence reported the same thing. The second thing that happened was not expected. Every crew member simultaneously experienced a memory, not a hallucination, not a dream, a specific, precise, fully detailed memory from their own past, but one they had not thought about in years, sometimes decades. Lieutenant Park remembered the exact feeling of his grandmother's hand on his shoulder at his grandfather's funeral when he was 7. Engineer remembered the precise smell of rain on hot pavement outside her childhood home in Accra. Navigator remembered a conversation with her sister that had seemed insignificant at the time, but suddenly felt like the most important thing anyone had ever said to her. Remembered her father teaching her to read star charts on a paper map spread across their kitchen table. His voice, the specific quality of afternoon light through the window, the way he had said, "Every star has a story, you just have to learn the language." The memory lasted 4 seconds. Then it was gone, and everyone was back on the bridge, and nobody spoke for a long moment. Report said. All systems nominal, Lieutenant Park said. His voice was slightly unsteady. No external stimuli detected, no energy readings, no nothing. Whatever that was, it didn't come from outside the ship. It came from inside us, Engineer said quietly. Nobody argued with her. Continue on course, said. The wreckage field began at hour 3. 417 ships spread across 11 light years was not dense by any visual standard. Space was simply too vast for that. But the threshold sensors painted the full picture on the tactical display, and the display was sobering. Ships of every design, every era, every civilization, drifting in the same absolute silence as if they had simply stopped. Studied the damage patterns. She had read about them in the reports, but seeing them in real time was different. The reports had been right, the damage was inconsistent. Some ships showed signs of catastrophic energy discharge. Others looked structurally intact from the outside with no obvious cause of death. Some showed damage patterns that suggested internal failure rather than external attack. They weren't all destroyed the same way, said. No, agreed. Which means whatever is here, it didn't use a weapon, Park said slowly. Or not the same weapon twice. Was quiet for a moment. Or it used exactly what each ship was most vulnerable to, she said. And every ship was vulnerable to something different. The bridge was very still. It knew them, said. It studied them, said, the same way it just studied us. She looked at the tactical display. The memory, it wasn't an attack, it was a scan, it was reading us. Reading us for what? Park asked. Before could answer, every screen on the bridge went blank simultaneously. Then on each screen, a single image appeared, different on every screen. Screen showed the star chart from her kitchen table. Parks showed his grandmother's hand. Showed rain on pavement in Accra. Then the images faded and were replaced by text. The same text on every screen, in perfect English. You are different from the others. Looked at it for a long moment. Then she leaned forward and typed a response directly into the screen. How? The response was immediate. The others came to take, you came to understand. Felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She typed again. What are you? A longer pause this time. When the response came, it was not text. It was the star chart again, but completed, expanded, showing not just the stars her father had taught her, but thousands more, arranged in a pattern she had never seen in any human astronomical database, and in the center of the pattern, one star was pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat. We are what was here before, the text read. We are what remains when civilizations forget to ask why. What followed was 6 hours that would spend the rest of her life trying to describe accurately and never quite managing it. It was not a conversation exactly. It was not a transmission. It was something that happened in the space between, in the same place the memories had come from, a communication that used human experience as its vocabulary because it had no other language available, and had apparently spent 600 years learning that the hard way with everyone else who had come here. The others had come with weapons charged, with territorial intentions, with the assumption that the unknown was a threat to be neutralized, and the thing in the silence, ancient, patient, present in ways that did not map onto any physical framework, had responded to what they brought. It had given them back their own aggression, their own fear, their own weapons, reflected and amplified until the ships could not survive the encounter. Not because it was hostile, because it was responsive, because it communicated in kind. Because for 600 years, everyone who came here brought the same thing, the assumption that power meant the right to take, and the silence had simply agreed with them in the only way that made sense given what they brought. Had brought questions. The silence, apparently, had a great many answers it had been waiting to give someone. She learned things in those 6 hours that she could not fully translate into human scientific language, but that she understood completely while they were happening. About the structure of space in this region, about why the coordinates were significant, about what the silence was, and how long it had been here, and what it had been before the galaxy's current civilizations were old enough to have written languages. She also learned something smaller, more personal, something she had not expected. Her father had sent a probe to these coordinates when she was 12 years old. An amateur probe built in their garage over 3 weekends, launched on a trajectory that everyone including him had assumed was just an interesting experiment. The probe had reached the silence 40 years later. The silence had kept it, had studied it, had found in the simple handmade construction of the thing something it recognized. The same quality it recognized in now. He taught you to ask why, the silence said. Yes, typed, her hands were very steady. She was slightly surprised by that. Good, the silence said, someone should. The threshold emerged from the silence at 1847 hours ship time. All systems functional, all crew present, no casualties, no damage. Filed her report that night. It was 147 pages long and contained more questions than answers, which she noted in the opening paragraph was appropriate given the circumstances. Earth Defense Command read it in full. Then they read it again. Then the senior staff sat in silence for a while and thought about what it meant that humanity had walked into the most dangerous region of known space and come out not because they were stronger or better armed, but because they had gone in asking questions instead of looking for a fight. The fleet, still assembled at the border of the silence, received a single transmission from Earth that same evening. It contained no threats, no demands, no military posturing. Just a copy of its report and a one-line message underneath. There is nothing to neutralize. There is quite a lot to learn. You are welcome to join us if you come the same way we did. The fleet commander read the transmission 3 times. Then she stood her fleet down. Then she sent a message back to High Command that contained only one question. How do humans do that? Nobody had a good answer. Nobody ever really did.